So we know each other, obviously, but for everyone playing at home, I'm Matt from Birchal. I run an equity crowdfunding platform, and Nic, you've had a long and varied career, but I'm interested to know about your role as CEO and co-founder of DC Powerco. So tell me a bit about that.
Well, yeah, long and varied. There's I've been a stockbroker and a hotelier and a singing telegram and run a few things. I think DC Powerco came out of, I spent the last 15 years working in emissions reduction, so actually creating carbon credits and selling them, United Nations carbon credits, and then selling them around the world, or working in developed countries in terms of helping organisations cut their emissions, but on quite big scales. In fact, we got a couple of times got in the Guinness Book of Records for the largest amount of emissions globally in short amounts of time. So that then got us into a space of really looking at what countries do around emissions and around energy. And in Australia, one of the things that was really particular is that we've got this movement where 20% of households have solar, which is by far the biggest in the world. And yet we have an electricity company that doesn't like it, doesn't like solar, it doesn't organise for solar. It has really been doing the same thing for 100 years. And since deregulation, kind of nicely stitched up the market. You have these, what's called in Australia, gen-tailers, the generators own the retailer, and so they one company and they have enough customers to be able to make sure they can sell their generation. And that generation is predominantly coal and gas. And so, that has a couple of problems really. One is obviously coal and gas are in decline, so you need more renewables, but it also means that your retailer really needs to sell you the energy they own.
Yeah.
And yet, if 20% of customers have fitted solar because they want to use less energy, that just doesn't make sense. And so, for example, not one single retailer in the country tells you if your solar stops working the next day automatically, not one. And yet they may have sold you the solar. So in terms of utility or service, it was non-existent. And actually, and then in terms of the direction of where the market is going towards renewables, no one was servicing that market or helping it to grow or facilitating the changes in the marketplace that would make it work better. So that's why we grew DC Powerco.
And I'm really interested to know how you went about starting the company, because it's a really amazing story and there are a few global firsts through that. So I'm interested to know a little bit more about that.
I think we started the normal route saying, there's a big space in the market, 20% of households in Australia, which is 2 million homes, have solar. We put together a really big pitch and we went out and we tried to raise $25 million to kind of get into the market with force and, get a foothold in that percentage. And several times we nearly raised that amount of money. In fact, one time within a few days of raising it, and every time we got close, the government would come out and say something ridiculous. I mean, literally just before we were about to close one deal, most solars in Queensland, and the Queensland government, as part of their pitch, says we might renationalise. And it's like, oh my God, so it's like, okay, well, there might not be a market next week, we're going to hold off. And so we suddenly realised this is going to be really, really difficult, given the fact that government has not got clear policy around renewables. It's going to be really difficult for investors to feel safe in terms of investment. And we all know, strong regulation in a marketplace allows the market then to go, okay, that's the playing field, let's act. Well, our playing field has been all over the space over the last 2 years. And so I think we were about to give up when suddenly in Australia something happened, which the rules changed. And, Birchal were right there at the front of that. And the rules changed to say, actually, crowdsourcing of equity is now possible. And the legislation was 2 years ago, about now, yeah.
Yes.
And then a year and a half ago, February, it came into act. And we were one of the first companies to use that legislation. And what was really interesting is that we went out with a crowdsource campaign to say to people with solar, hey, would you like to invest? And I think at that point, the most people who'd ever invested at the launch of a company was about 4,000 people, and we had 12,500 investors.
Did you know that before you launched the campaign? Did you, I suppose, appreciate the magnitude of what you had set out to achieve and then what you in fact achieved after the first crowdfunding offer? Just, I suppose, for everyone playing at home, it was the largest crowdfunding campaign in terms of participation by 3 times the previous record and globally at the time. So did you appreciate the magnitude of what you've done?
No, we kind of felt like we'd failed because our goal was to go, could we get 100,000 people within who own solar to go, we need the market to be different. Let's act. Let's put $50 in each,
Yes.
And so we really had a kind of different feel. It was more of a campaign feel to it. And then we actually realized this is not it's not actually a campaign. We're in an investment cycle. And so at the end, we learned that it was significant. I mean, actually meeting you guys and you saying, do you know what you've achieved, was one of those moments, actually, those aha moments for us of, gosh, it was really something extraordinary. But I think what we did get is that, and actually 80% of our investments were $50. 80% of the people who invested were $50. And so that was unusual too, and new and different. We did realize at the end of that there was a passion for people to be part of owning, in terms of business, owning the solution to what could be seen as a market problem, but also as a environmental problem or a social problem or a political problem. And it was very interesting looking at that 12,500 people and getting to know them over the last year, that those motivations are completely varied.
And how has that been? Because it seems to me, in many ways, DC is a perfect case study for what can be achieved with equity crowdfunding. Power and an electricity company, these are things that are typically owned by governments under different policy regimes, but this is something where people can act privately and own something that is, I suppose, a piece of infrastructure or something that is kind of central to what the community needs. And I suppose also having the focus that you have on renewables is really tapping into something that I think many people are thinking about, but perhaps not able to act as they feel they should. So,
no, I think that's right. I think there's almost kind of 3 bits to it. There's one is, this is people power, as opposed to just energy and power.
Yes.
There's definitely a part about this where people want to see action for a number of different reasons, whether they want better pricing for their solar or whether they want action on climate change. Whatever that is, they want a kind of power that's not just the energy coming down their line, but some force behind that power that says we're changing. We are gonna, we're either going to be delivering a great renewable solution for you, or we're actually going to be doing something for the environment. They want to see that. And so this, in some ways, has created an opportunity for people to go, I want to be part of that change, and I'm fed up that governments aren't making that change. And I'm really fed up with the big power companies that are just comfortably there, generating their energy every day. And actually, one of the worst things about this is not just that they really don't like solar and don't care about solar, but they also do something else, is that they charge the most to people who stay the longest. So the longer you've been with a power company, there is no doubt the worse you're getting screwed.
Yeah.
And that, it seems to me, in terms of service, just shows laziness. We've had it that way for 50 years, so we can just screw our customers. That is just not appropriate in this world anymore. We've got to be better than that. And actually, that's just poor customer service. We've got to be better than that because the industry is going to revolutionize, particularly in Australia with so much sun. So I think that's one bit. I think the second bit that's really stimulated me just for this second round of crowdsource funding. So the first one was about building a service, and we've done that. Everything we said we would do, we've done in our first year. So we went out and we said, we're going to build a power company, we're going to get customers, we're going to deliver something that's special for solar people. Everything that we said we would do, we've done in our first year. And then we said, once we've achieved that, we'll go out and start to build the platform that really allows all that solar to work better, to change the systems, to start getting batteries, to connect together in this kind of Aussie big battery, the virtual power station. Well, that's the second phase, and we want to go out and do that. But actually my motivation, although that's kind of geeky exciting, that's where I was a year ago, right now I'm in a completely different place.
Yeah.
I have been I have 2 children, one's 23, one's 17. My daughter is now doing the Friday strikes and marching for climate change.
Really?
I'm completely moved by little Greta Thunberg, every Friday and going, I am the problem. I am 58 years of age. It is my age, the cohort before me and us.
Yes.
We have not done enough. And our children, whether they're our children or somebody else's, but they are saying, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And you are not doing enough. And we've just had our government in Australia go, guess what? We're not doing it anymore. And we all know that we have benefited from that inaction, and that inaction is going to continue. And I think we're at a point where I am a beneficiary of the last 30 years. I've bought my house, I own my house. My children can't see owning a house like I own a house. My children can't see the planet like I see it. My children are concerned that the barrier reef won't be there. They've got these concerns.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? And I suddenly think it's no longer about offering a service. It's actually about saying, you need to tell your children that you're doing your bit. You need to not just keep benefiting. And if you can invest $50 or $10,000 or $50,000, but invest, and then become a customer of ours and get your power from us, regardless of what you may or may not be concerned about. Do it because we're driving for change. And then thirdly, if you can afford it, lock in today's prices, put solar on your roof, put battery on your roof, because it makes financial sense. And do not wait, and just don't wait another minute. Don't wait, it might change, or the technology might change, or I might buy an electric car. Act now. Because actually, you can then go home and sit at the table with your kids or your grandkids or your nephews or your godchildren and say, I did it. I'm doing it. And I know we haven't done enough, but I'm starting, darling.
It's inspirational, but it's a massive undertaking, and it's a huge goal that you have. What do you see are the challenges for this, and how has the last 12 months been? Like, you've got these 12,500 investors, these people that have been brought into this mission that DC Powerco is on. How have you managed your relationship with them? Do you feel that this army has been created and you're starting to kind of make that headway with changing people's minds?
We're talking about our solar army, yeah. Yes, and honestly, no. We had 12,000 investors, 2,000 became customers. Half of them are not engaged. They invested and they've walked away, which is, it's what happens, right? I mean, I know it. I've got my super. I don't look at what my super's doing every day. So we're thinking about, how do we say to them, hold on a minute, you invested because there was something special here, but you do have to act. I think that's the thing I've got this year, is it's not enough. I mean, I'm challenged by the energy sector. I'm challenged by the space, but that's not the hard bit. The hard bit is knowing is that we are creating a business with a social purpose that actually, if we got this market right, I don't know what our share price is today. I think we're just about to go out, and so the valuation will be there in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.
But there will have been a bit of growth, I think. But if we get this right, and just 20% of those 2 million homes with solar were our customers in the next 3 years, because they wanted to see change, because they want to think about the battery, because they want to be connected, because they want to say, actually, my investment and where I get my power from and what I'm doing on my home needs to happen to drive change. And it's not costing me anything. I mean, that investment will be worth 20 times more. That's not a bad investment.
That's pretty good.
But the interesting thing is, for me, I am uninterested in that.
Yeah.
That will be an extraordinary consequence of actually, me saying to Holly, look at the people around. They are having a go. I know you're marching on Fridays, but older people are thinking about it. They are using their investment. They are buying their power. They are, putting 20 grand's worth of kit on their house, which they know is going to pay off in the next 10 years. They know it made sense, but they stopped, they thought, and they acted. And we are offering that alignment. It's hard when I don't see it. I see people who care, but then go, but I'm busy. Or, I forgot. I mean, so many people went, Nic, that crowdsource funding was amazing. And I went, what did you do? They went, I got the thing and I really want to do it and I forgot. It's like, you know, Google Greta.
Yeah.
Look at a 15-year-old telling you why that's not okay anymore. We have benefited from changing the environment in a way that is not appropriate, and our children are asking, it's not okay to be too busy. And so that's what I'm struggling with, actually, emotionally, as you can see.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that has really captured my mind and imagination is this notion of this virtual power plant that you want to build. And it's this is the crisis of our time. Like, we all know that we need to do something, and you know, I as a piece of infrastructure, I suppose this virtual infrastructure that people are building and can be a part of, that is going to help us transition from fossil fuels and coal fire in this country. You know, this. I mean, how do you see this playing out? It is. I mean, it'll be amazing if you can do it. But can you do it, Nic?
Well, I think the interesting thing is to have a virtual power plant in this country. So half of the homes, let's get geeky.
Yep.
Half of the homes in Australia could have solar and a battery. And that's 5 million homes. If just 400,000 of those homes, so 20%, only 20% of the homes that have already got it had a battery. That's 400,000 homes. That is the equivalent in energy of Snowy 2. I call it Sunny 1. But, you know, it's same in equivalent. The interesting thing is, and if the government paid for half of the batteries, I mean, they're not at the moment, right? No, we're paying for our own. But if they paid for half, we'd build the equivalent of Snowy 1, and we need another one. We could Snowy 2.
Yeah.
In half the time, at half the price, and we'd all be in it, and it wouldn't be energy somewhere up in the mountains that we've now got to build big lines and pay for them and to get our energy. It would be in where we're using the energy, in our communities, and connected.
Yes.
So in some ways, to make those virtual power plants work, there's lots of things that we should change. But what's really amazing is if the government does nothing, if we don't change any of those infrastructures, if we don't do anything, one house at a time, with my solar and my battery, if I'm with an organisation that's using the value of my vote in doing it, we can do it now. We don't have to change a thing. And of course, as more of us do, and you know, that part of our advocacy role will to ensure that that comes quicker and faster and we get more financial benefit for all those batteries that are connected. But it doesn't matter. Right now, it makes financial sense on an individual basis to do it. And right now, it works. And as soon as you do, you flatten out the system, you make the system calmer, you hold the energy there. So we can just have it by acting together. We don't need anything to change. And as we act, it will change. And then it only gets better.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like so many things in this space that they make sense, I suppose, you know, in the abstract, but it really requires people to act and be involved.
But I thought there were lots of barriers when I started. I thought there were lots of, you know, technical barriers and network barriers and finance barriers and government barriers. I thought that, but there are no barriers. You know, you can go on. You can literally go on our website at the moment. You can stick in your address, and within 2 minutes, it's probably the most exciting little bit of digital stuff in the world for pricing solar and a battery. Literally within 2 minutes, we'll tell you about solar and a battery and how much it would save you and how much that's going to save you over your bills and the payback time within literally a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
We've never done. That's never been around before. We really can just do it. What's exciting and where the geeks will go wild, and that won't be me, I'm a storyteller, right? But the geeks will go wild is that the technology, once we have a basis of that, is all out there. It's being developed. That's where the investment's been. The investment's been in all these bits. The trouble is we haven't had the body of people that need those products.
Yes.
That's what we got to bring.
Yeah.
That's who we want to be.
So we've had an election recently.
Yes.
I'm interested to know how your perspective has changed after the election. I suppose that it's an interesting point because it didn't pan out the way that most people thought that it would, and lots of businesses have, I suppose, started to organise themselves in the expectation that one thing was going to happen and another has. So how has the landscape changed for you?
funnily enough, I think for the better. Because after the election, the next day, our new coalition government was buoyed by its success, and it was speaking honestly for 48 hours about what it's going to do on climate. And it was saying, we're not going to do any more. And we don't care where you think it's going to get. We don't care if you don't think it's going to get to Paris Agreement. We do, and we're not doing any more. And Michael McCormack, the head of the Nats and the Deputy Prime Minister, was going, so if you're down there, I guess he was talking to us, drinking your latte and you've got your latte machine at home and you want it to work, then put the panels on your roof and create your own energy if you don't want coal. Well,
we will.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So if you want action, if people want this to change now, it is really clear in this country. You are benefiting financially by the decisions that we've made. You've got your own home. You maybe have got your second home and your third home. You're doing whatever you're doing. It makes financial sense to have solar and a battery. The thing is, it's absolutely necessarily needed for you, therefore, to take advantage of that. Ask your kids. Yeah, so I'm all right. I think it's clear. You want it, you do it, good. We're here as a company. We'll help you. We'll make it easy. We'll find the solar for you. We'll find the battery for you. We'll help you get it fitted. We'll stay with you during the life of that journey. We'll supply your energy for you or top it up or sell it for you. If it goes wrong, and there's lots of it going wrong, we'll help create a class action if we need to. I mean, interestingly, half of the solar that's sold, more than half the solar that's been sold in this country was sold by organisations that are now offshore. So if it goes wrong, what do you do with your warranty? We want to be there and saying, hold on a minute, we know we've got 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 customers who've got that problem with that company. We'll put you together and create a class action. We'll get it back. But no one wants to do that for anybody at the moment.
Yeah. DC is a pioneer, I suppose, in the crowdfunding space, having been one of the first companies to actually do this. The world's first community-owned solar-focused electricity company, and as we've mentioned, completed the biggest equity crowdfunding campaign in terms of numbers globally at the time. What do you think the outlook looks like for other companies that are considering fundraising in this way, and what are some of the pearls of wisdom that you'd have for them, having been through the process?
So I think crowdsourced equity funding has brought two things, and they're really different. One is if you've got a small business and you've got a few hundred friends on Facebook and they've all said, hey, I'd like to invest, it's actually a really easy way of getting them together and pulling it together. So, at a small level, it's something really valuable. But the fact that you can raise up to 5 million, I think what's more interesting is for those people who are looking to try and scale something with customers, and that they want a loyal customer group to grow their business. It does, but it does allow you to go out to that group and say, hey, look, get your product from us, but own the company too and help us shape the company. And I think that is really, really valuable and interesting, because you've got some dedicated people that will tell you the truth. I mean, we got about 4,000. I mean, about a third of our investors follow us on Facebook, which is pretty incredible.
It is.
And they tell us, they tell me. I mean, they even tell me what I'm wearing. If I got the shirt wrong today, I'm really sorry. Like, Nick should be wearing a suit. You run a power company now. It's like there's real ownership in that. But I think it's really important. It's been great for us. I mean, really, truly great. But I do think it's not easy. I think I think we've got 1,200 people invested in the first, or said that, expressed interest in the first 24 hours. But that's not easy. It's not easy to speak to those kind of numbers. And so I think one of the things about this is recognizing the value in the group of people that you can get to and speak to. And not everybody can speak to thousands of people. That's not the easy bit.
Yeah.
So it's amazing because you can connect to your consumer and you can stay close and they can stay close to you, but be clear, I think, about how many people you can speak to and how you're going to speak to them, and don't believe just because you're doing crowdsourced funding that 1 million people are going to walk through the door.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the naive bit that I hear when people are talking to me.
It's not as easy as the opening the offer and the universe will provide.
Hey,
so.
you know, and part of me wants it to be because I'm passionate, right, about the product.
Yes.
But actually, you know, people are busy and they're doing lots of things. And yes, you know, they hear it and their heart opens, and then 3 minutes later, they've got to cook dinner or pick up the kids or, you know, go to work.
Yes, yeah.
It's not easy.
As a platform, as you know, we've chosen to focus on businesses that have a strong consumer proposition. But we often say that the ideal client for us is someone that doesn't need the money, a company that is really doing this for the marketing value, but also the ability to bring their customers closer to their business as investors. Would you say that? I mean, it seems that was you would have done this anyway. I suppose the money, really raising the money, wasn't the factor. It was really wanting to be widely held and drawing people into your business. Would you agree with that?
That's how it started, although we did need the money too. I mean, we were starting a business, so we did need both. I mean, we crowdsourced funding, brought in about 2.2 million, and then we matched that with wholesale investors about 5 million first time round, so we raised about 7 million in total. So it was a part of the component, an important part. I wouldn't downplay it in terms of the value of it. And certainly this round, I suspect we'll do something similar, and we want the money. It's not, we're growing a business in a very complex sector, and we're not yet profitable, and it's risky, and all the things that you say.
Yeah, of course.
But we're in that space. I do think, though, what is really important for us is that we believe that if we do align our customers with our investors, we will have built something in this sector that's got weight. And in a sector where every single customer rates their company most likely negatively, we've just done our first Net Promoter Score, so how our customers feel about talking about us, and we have got the highest published one in the country.
Wow.
And that's because most power companies don't publish them because they go negative.
Yeah, I imagine they do.
So yes, that alignment's working already.
Yeah. I have often wondered around this notion of corporate social responsibility, and I mean, a lot is spoken about in the public and listed space, and having an obligation for directors to produce returns for shareholders. But it seems that companies that are crowdfunded, like DC, that are really going to investors with a clear purpose, perhaps it's not just the profit or being focused on providing returns to shareholders. Of course, they're important, but it seems that this bargain, this promise has been made for people that are drawn into what it is that a company like DC is trying to achieve. And I mean, I'd like to think that they will hold you to account as time goes on, and you will respond to that. Would you agree with that there's this potential of equity crowdfunding or crowdfunded businesses to change how we think about corporate social responsibility?
I think you're immediately closer because you're owned by people, and every company can say, well, we're owned by people because we're owned by super funds, and that's people. But there is no relationship between me and my super fund, and then where they elect to spend their money, and then what happens at board meetings, or the pressure that's so there is really very little relationship. So this is a real relationship. As I said, if in our organisation we talk about our owners by name if they're on Facebook. It's like, Fred's just said again today.
Yeah.
Oh, is he? Really great. What are we going to do about that? I've got to wear a suit. So I think it has changed. But I think there's something else. Is that as a company, we see a gap in the market, and that gap in the market is a gap in two spaces. It's a gap in the market financially because 5 million homes can have solar, and not one single power company yet is delivering a service for people with solar. If we can have a proportion of that market, that 5 million households, half the market in Australia that will have solar by 2050, whatever it is, already half of them, 3 million homes by 2030, 2 million homes today, any significant share of that space, and you're the biggest in the country. And if you've done that and you invested when the shares were 57 cents, you know, they will be, if we are successful significantly in that space, be worth dollars. Don't know how many dollars? Who knows? If we're successful. Of course, breaking into that, as we will say in our bits of paper, is really risky, right? Not easy. But I think the other bit, which is what you're saying, is that the drive for me going into work every day, and if I'm successful with the bit that drives me, is not creating a value 20 times what the share value is today. The actual thing that's driving me is to say that market needs to be served because renewables needs to be big in Australia, because actually if it's not, we as a country are not contributing our bit in terms of leading the globe, bringing other businesses here, you know, saying this is the place of renewables and of change and of innovation and of technology. We need to be saying that in Australia. And at the moment we're saying, oh, sorry, we're thinking about another coal-fired power station up north. You know, it's the wrong conversation globally. And so if we deliver on that, you know, I have the pride with my kids, because they have to live the company, you know, with me, of saying we did our bit. And actually, if we've done our bit and it works, then we will have done the big multiple. And our investors will have gone, glad I got in then. And it's not easy, but it's really fun having a go every day because I'm in this space. If I was just in here driving for a multiple every day, I don't know if I'd come in.
Inspirational stuff.
Matt, I got to just say, to you guys, thanks for the way you put us out there. Thanks for the way you respond. Thanks for knowing that actually by speaking to lots of people, you change our business. I mean, really, you know, we're really grateful to Birchal and to you and the guys. Thank you.
Pleasure. We're delighted to be working with you. Thanks very much, Nic.
It's all right, you're welcome.